Couldn't help overhearing a number of conversations of people sharing medical stories, drugs, so to speak. Remember, Archangel Raphael means God heals, and there's a medicine Buddha too, so if you want to explore that, maybe it'll be better than what you get from Duane Reed. So we're going to do the prayer again. Why don't we switch this time and do Zen first? Or you can do what you want, clearly. But I'm going to do the Zen for 20 and then the centering prayer. If you want to try on your own, a mantra like Jesus Prayer or Om or something, you can feel free. It won't do you any harm. But I'm just going to concentrate on those two types, and then we'll compare notes afterwards, and then I'll have my final final remarks on moral and social norms in the two traditions.
The Zen prayer, you're counting backwards on the exhales throughout.
Not counting back to Junior Theological on the centering prayer and Zen comparison. One of the main points I made then is that in centering prayer, you consciously make a subject-object distinction, you are being present to God within you, but still subject-object. That in Zen, you're just being present. I now realize more fully, and I think maybe contemplative outreach itself realizes more fully that it is moving now also towards this disappearance of subject-object distinction, which is that mystical union, what I like to call, Richard Rohr likes to call non-duality. He thinks that's going to become a key word in bringing traditions together. That our goal is, and our reality, I think this reality is non-duality. That is to say, not one, not two, Advaita. We're not just a monism. We're not God, but we're not separate either. There's a distinction, but not a separation. There's it may not be an identity, but there's an identification. No longer I live, but Christ lives in me, etc. So that's the kind of consciousness that we move towards, in any spiritual practice. But for you guys, so let's hear. Do you have any further reactions or questions against this?
I found myself more moved by this particular session than the one that we had before lunch. I think it was just a matter of getting my mind to get rid of the everyday anxieties and everything. But something I thought that was kind of profound happened, that as I'm meditating, I found it's kind of hard to explain, but I found myself existing in the tiny space between my thumbs, but I also felt God existed too. And then with the Gregorian chant, that was just, I don't know, it was like perfect exit of that state.
So, and that's the kind of one-pointedness, as they sometimes call it, that you can sometimes feel that you really are reduced to that point. And the one point contains everything, just like before the Big Bang, the one point contained everything. So it can express itself that way. Anyone else? Thank you. Well, you're really great sitters, by the way. Really very recollective. So how do they compare for you? No reflections on that? Just nourish.
I thought it was very helpful for me to combine centering prayer and Zen. And what I mean by that is that you didn't felt, I used the different mantras but to read at the same time as the mantra really gave me a lesson in my mind. And I had.
So you're finding your personal technique in there. sorry.
Well, still like, I don't, it has nothing to do with meditation or mindfulness or,
Really?
so that's the question I have. I still have a confusion, like, as being Catholic is like, I don't believe in everything the Catholic Church teaches. Like, you know, if you have an alternative lifestyle, but you can't live that way, and you can't do this, and you can't do that. I'm still confused about, I thought that was all loving.
I'm coming to that in my last session. Yes.
I think for me, the difference between the morning and the afternoon is a real reminder for me that the more I do this, the more I'll find it easier to do.
Yeah. It's like doing anything.
Yeah.
Not always.
It's
I
not
feel like I've been
always
practicing for a long time, and then days I still feel like bolting up my chair.
Well, that of course that could still happen, and still work to do in our souls. But there is a general progression. I think you do find it in general easier as you once you go past certain hurdles. Like I think I said before that people who do serious spiritual work at some point will almost certainly need psychotherapy to help clean out the obstacles that are in the way. But once that's been done, and once you've gotten some facility, you still get crises, yes, but in general it gets smoother as you move forward on the journey. But it is the hero's journey. You've got to go down into the depths, into the night sea's journey, hero's journey, night sea journey, as Jung calls it, and then up again. So it can be formidable, but it's worth it.
So when you practice both centering prayer and Zen meditation?
Yeah, but I mostly do Zen, but I also integrate a lot of the stuff I was talking about before, the Tibetan and the chakra stuff. I integrate into my daily practice.
So you mostly do that, not centering prayer?
Well, personally, yeah. But it is what it is. And of course, I'm immersed in the preaching and celebrating Mass every day. I'm immersed in the Christian imagination as well. So, but for me, it all works together. It's my personal synthesis. Yeah.
After the mantra talk and after I guess my way to get into what you're doing in terms of Zen and then Jesus-centered, basically with the Zen sense or the Buddhist sense. What I basically focused on was my breathing and kind of the bodily aware and just being present. Whereas since I grew up like Catholic, when it came to the Jesus section, I basically brought to mind my Christianity or touch points in terms of what was important to me, just to have that sense again. And
Yes.
then and it's simply that. And then I go back to the breath, and then I still go back again to the Christian image, whatever would hit me, but eventually rest with that. And that was basically that.
Yeah. So this is something you'd do with a spiritual director, or something you find your own path, and it goes through stages, of course, and that's all fine. That's all great. What you're saying. I know a big step forward, or hurdle, or turning point in my own practice was actually being able to let go of the notion of Christ in order to meet Christ. Because the word in the end got in the way. It's like the word God or anything can get in the way. Because Christ is not just the word Christ, or even the name Jesus. The name Jesus is profound and powerful and a tremendous prayer. And the reality of Jesus is contained in that. But in the end, it's even beyond the word. So that was my step that I had made at one point. Because, I now experience it. There's no way you can not experience Christ. Because Christ is everything, fills the universe in all its parts. There's nothing but Christ. As St. Augustine says, in the end there will just be Christ loving himself. There's just Christ. So, of course, you're always in contact with Christ. It's not that you let go of Christ and then just go back to your breath. I mean, your breath is Christ too. So you just maybe don't call it that or think of it as that, but it doesn't mean it isn't. So Christ is everywhere. As the prayer of St. Patrick says, Christ behind me, Christ above me. So I have no fear of, not being in Christ, because you can't not be. And that's very greatly reassuring too. But you don't need the word all the time. And you can live at that level of consciousness, which is very beautiful. I do it every day when I preach and celebrate Mass, as I said, and do my Christian prayer. But you're not limited by the words. Once you're in non-dual union with the Trinity or whatever, you don't think Trinity. You don't think.
I look at it as two different cultures, and then I have to bow before each one.
Right. At that level of consciousness, there are two different cultures. Yes.
And so therefore,
they're pointing in one direction.
Yeah. So therefore, while I'm here, I bring up basically what I sense with Christianity is.
Yeah.
Where I'm in meditation, I basically have a sense of what they're trying to communicate.
Which is good. You can. There's no reason you can't do both. Or three things, four things. Because as we said, they're all true and they're all wisdom traditions, and they can all help you. If they do help you at this point in your life, that's again spiritual direction can help you discern that. What's really helpful. Okay, one more, and then we'll get to the forward. Yes.
What I was going to say now is a little to do with not so much with spiritual. Actually, when we did the Buddha walk, I never realized how improperly I've been walking all my life. And my foot gave out the loudest crack like about 4 times. I concentrated on what you had said, how to put, basically put one foot flat.
Yeah.
Instead of standing on the other toe, just open it flat and then move your foot. And I felt the difference.
Yeah.
It was amazing.
And imagine you actually articulate your foot when you walk. Who knew? Who knew? Because who pays attention? So I would like to, for this final section here, address the morality and social teaching within the two traditions. First of all, when we're talking about Christianity, we're not talking about the 10 Commandments. Please, that's the original Jewish revelation. People talk about, let's put the 10 Commandments on courthouse steps and all this stuff, and say, come on, this is kid stuff. I mean, not killing and not lying and not committing adultery and stealing. This is kid stuff if you want to lead a spiritual life. Christian spirituality is the Beatitudes. Not the 10 Commandments, it's the 8 Beatitudes. That's Jesus' sermon, that's in Deer Park at Sinai. That's the foundational text of Christianity, is the Sermon on the Mount, beginning with the 8 Beatitudes. So, poor in spirit, meek, don't inherit the earth no matter what Wall Street says. Be merciful and you will retain the mercy. Blessed the peacemakers, the children of God. Blessed the pure of heart, they will see God. Trying to do. Blessed are they who mourn, who can take on the pain of the world, they will be comforted. That's what Jesus did in his life, healing, and on the cross as well. So now you see why we concentrated on the 10 Commandments. That stuff is way too hard for the ego, way too counterintuitive. But that's the way forward. And part of the Sermon on the Mount, of course, is the purification of the heart is love your enemies, turn your other cheek, do not return evil for good, evil for evil, but good for evil. As St. Paul later says. So this is something we've never tried. So remember what Chesterton, G.K. Chesterton said. It's not that Christianity has been tried and found wanting. It's just been found too difficult and left untried. So we either as individuals or certainly not as nations, as a culture, quotes Christian culture, have we ever done that? Have we ever put into Christian nations fighting Christian nations all through history. I mean, come on. We were never Christian. So, I mean, this is what we should really be concentrating on, you know, the Beatitudes in the Sermon on the Mount. That's what can move us forward. Now, here's where Buddhism has something to contribute, as Paul Dater says in his book about without Buddha I could not be Christian, has something really important to contribute to Western culture today, Christian culture, is nonviolence. Where there's such a strong emphasis on nonviolence. We've had, you know, not only Gandhi, but we've had Christians like Martin Luther King who were putting this into practice. But it is basically the Christian view as well as the Eastern view, ahimsa, which is non-violence. You know, not only do you not kill, but you don't even think violent thoughts. You know, whoever's angry with his brother is already liable. You know, so this is where the purification of heart has to come in. If you're seeking peace, seeking justice, you have to be peace. As Thich Nhat Hanh also said. So you have to establish peace in your hearts if you want to work for peace, justice and peace in your hearts if you want to work peace and justice. And that's where the inner work comes in. That's where the real challenge comes in. So in other words, Buddhism is helping us to recuperate, find again, rediscover our own tradition of nonviolence. You know, which the just war theory and all these other things, which is now, as you might have heard, being reconsidered by Pope, as no longer the guiding principle. So with things like that, we just have not really put it into practice at all. Now well, let me present a little bit of the Buddhist morality, and then you'll see where I think the West, in its turn, in its pas de deux, can make a real contribution to Buddhism, and again, something that Paul Dater does point out. If you look at, there are a lot of little lists of rules and commandments, you know, in Buddhism. Basically, have just like St. Thomas's first rule: do good and avoid evil. The three pure precepts: cease from evil, do good to others. For example, this is my teacher's Bernie Glassman's book on Infinite Circle Teachings in Zen. The 10 grave precepts: non-killing, non-stealing, not being greedy, not telling lies, not being ignorant, not talking about others' faults, not elevating oneself by blaming others, not being stingy, not being angry, not speaking ill of the Buddha, Dharma, or Sangha. But you have, and part of it too is, you know, no improper sexual behavior. So you have 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th commandments. So there's that correspondence. And of course, because that's largely natural law, as the scholars have pointed out. Of course, you don't kill or steal, you know, commit adultery or lie. I mean, these are basic laws of human civilization. They're not to be revealed by God. But they should be part of any spiritual tradition. These basic things. What is improper sexual behavior? Well, to see how Buddhism approaches these things, if you look at the Eightfold Path, I spoke about the Four Noble Truths, about suffering and its overcoming earlier. The Eightfold Path, which is often symbolized by the wheel of the Dharma, you often see that in flags, of Buddhist flags, etc. The 8 spokes of a wheel are the Eightfold Path, the Dharma path. And as I pointed out in Houston Smith's book. Now listen to this. I'm sure you've heard them before, but right views. To have right perceptions about reality. To have a right intention. Good intention. Right speech. Wash your words. Right feeling. Help. Right conduct. Your action in the world. Right livelihood. Choose a career that helps the world, doesn't just line your pockets. Right effort. Put the necessary vigor into your life. Right mindfulness. Start being mindful, huh? And right concentration. That's the meditation part. We go even deeper. And that's it. Right. Which means what? Well, just like they don't talk about God, they don't talk about specifics. Because, you know, you'll find from your practice and you'll find, you know, from the community, you'll find what right means. Bernie, in his book, actually, when he talks about that, says right means no. no views, no effort, no action. None of this comes from your own ego and your own preconceived judgments and your own prejudices and your own greed and all this stuff. So no, just don't take in, have no action. It's a Taoistic Wu way. Don't act. Just let life act in you in a deeper, more spontaneous way. So there was a conference at Columbia a few years ago after I'd just gotten there, led by Bob Thurman, Thurman's father was a Tibetan scholar, as you know, at Columbia. And they were basically pointing out that there's no moral theology, no moral philosophy in Buddhism. There's no systematic, thought-out metaphysics or cosmology of moral obligation, and because there's no cosmology, because they don't define things. They ask you to find it out through the integrity of your practice and through the evolution of the community. That there just is not all, there are not these detailed rules. Now in Christianity, wow, you've got a lot of detailed rules, not only in the scriptures, but in theology, in moral theology and moral philosophy. And in some ways that can be a help, but in other ways it can be a terrible hindrance. When you try and be casuistic, as they say, when you try and find a solution to every single case that's well reasoned out, and if it's only reasoned out and comes from up here and not from down here or here, then you're in trouble. I mean, one of the examples of how things should change, and what right means, right conduct, right action, how that changes and should change over time, in our own tradition, is slavery, for example. Slavery in the Old Testament and slavery in the New Testament, only good things to say about it. Slaves, obey your masters. I mean, masters treat your slaves well, but slaves obey your masters. So, of course, for 1800 years plus, Western culture said, great stuff, I can have slaves. Well, no. It took us 1800 years plus, and we're not out of it yet. The new name for slavery is prisons, or whatever, eviction, drugs. So it's, we have to be really careful to make sure we're following what, to use Christian language, the Spirit reveals to us when we are deeply practicing as individuals and as a community, and how the Spirit is guiding us. The Spirit blows where it wills. You don't know where it's coming from, where it's going, because God is infinite, and so our understanding of truth and right behavior, right conduct, right action, is going to change as we evolve. So this still needs to happen, especially in sexuality and in such matters of sexual orientation in the church and in the world today. That needs to move forward. We need more thinking, more listening, more living those realities that were coming before. Just one example. That's just one example. So the openness of Buddhist ethics is in the long term an advantage. Now, as I say, where I think the pas de deux can profit on the side of Buddhism is precisely on the level of social engagement. This has been always very strong in the Hebrew prophets, in the action of Jesus, in Catholic social teaching, in Christian social teaching. There's a lot going on today here. This has not been a strong theme in the history of Buddhism, or in Hinduism for that matter. Why? It's curious to ask why. Maybe because they had a sense of that society was just, structured in such a way, maybe the caste system and everything, and that it was all interior, or that this life was Maya, this life was just a shadow, so why bother? You also had that notion in Christianity. You poor people, wait till you get to heaven. Don't worry about it now. That this world was, the world, the engagement was interior, and so, don't worry about the outer world. For whatever reason, and it's a definite lack, definite fault, that has not been developed in Buddhism in general. Now, of course, it's changing as the culture becomes more global, and there's more interaction. But that's a special way. So, on the one hand, you want more social engagement, my dear Buddhist friends. But our Buddhist friends say, very well, my dear Western friends, my Christian friends, but make sure your heart is pure and peaceful and not violent. There's nothing worse than an angry social activist. Liberals, take heed. Because you're only making the problem worse. In that sense, the Buddhists are perfectly correct. It starts here and it ends here. Otherwise, your work in the world won't have right intent. You won't have right tone or whatever. So your action won't be right because it won't be proceeding from the pure of heart who will see God. Because God is nonviolent, no matter what you might have read in the Old Testament or elsewhere. God is nonviolent. Just look around. Where is he forcing people to do anything? How patient, how hidden, how respectful, delicate, subtle. So much so that people don't even think God exists. Where's God? Why doesn't God intervene? Because it's not how God acts. It's not who God is. If you did your inner work, you'd find that out fast. So I think there's a real pas de deux there, you know, in terms of how the two traditions can nourish each other, challenge each other.
Father, is karma? Because some of my Buddhist friends said they're not as focused on...
Who is it?
Some of my Buddhist friends say they're not as focused on social justice because sometimes they think people
Yes,
are meant to live out their karmic.
That's a good point. That is somehow the way they see it. The whole question of karma is a difficult one. I think the way we can take it in the West, at the least, is say your actions have their own rewards, bad or good. Richard Rohr would go so far as to say that's what creates your heaven or hell, starting now. What you do, and so the actions have consequences. Yes. But to say you've built up all this and so you have to suffer, especially from a past life, we have to think about that. Some, I don't like to use the word New Age, but some people who think that we choose our lives, choose our incarnations, if you believe in that kind of thing. Even a hard one, even a difficult one with a lot of suffering, or as a person who gets murdered or is handicapped in some way. Not just because we deserve it from a past life, but in order to challenge ourselves to how to grow in a deeper way. So if we approach karma that way, it's not just a punishment if you're this way or that, but it's something that can help you grow. You actually have an advantage in some ways for some blind person over a one that's not blind. In some ways, that can be a cause for spiritual growth. So if we approach it more along those lines, I think we could work with it. And even apart from the notion of incarnation, reincarnation is whatever circumstances we have, we can grow in, and we should have compassion. That's the final word where the two come together, where all traditions come together, as Karen Armstrong says very well, the Charter of Compassion. All the traditions point to compassion, which is love coming from compassion, from pity for help for the misery of people, but also respect for the dignity of people. To put those two together, their suffering and their intrinsic dignity is what brings forth compassion, what that's directed to and from and forth. So that's the test of your spiritual practice in any tradition. Are you becoming more compassionate? God is love. Who abides in love abides in God in that person, no matter what faith they are or what faith they're not. If you love, you know God, as John says, St. John's letter. Whoever loves knows God. Not whoever loves Jesus, but whoever loves, period, knows God. And if you don't, you don't. So in the end, we come back to non-duality. We're all one, not monism, but Advaita, non-distinction. So the pas de deux, I can't help myself. I have to end with this. The pas de deux becomes pas deux. Right, I speak French. I lived in France. So what that means is it's not just a pas de deux, a dance of two. It's ne sont plus deux. It's a pas deux. They're not two. Two. It's a pas. That's a step. A step of two. It's the dance pas de deux. But pas deux means they're not two. And that's true of religions, it's true of people, it's true of plants, it's true of science tells us that, we're not separate. And that's the goal of all of this together. So remember, it's not something we have to strive for or fight for. We already are. We just have to wake up. Thank you. Okay, you may have a few questions or comments, and then Judy and I have to run to catch a train, so we can't stick around past 5 o'clock. But we're also going to get a survey. We'd like you to fill out a survey for this. But any final comments or questions? Because we have a few minutes. Yeah.
Just a comment that comes from Einstein,
Yeah.
that you were talking about non-duality.
Yeah.
Many of you, I think, probably know, but some may not know, that one of his comments talking about our sense of ourselves in the universe, that we all, as individuals, have a sense of ourselves being separate from the world around us. And he says, that's an optical delusion of consciousness.
Yeah.
I love that phrase.
Yeah.
An optical delusion of consciousness.
The Buddhists know that already. I wish more Christians did, but it is true. Yeah.
And the other part of that, he goes on to say, our job today is to gradually expand our circle of compassion and love, beyond our family and beyond those that we know, to take in all beings and all nature.
Yeah.
And that's as much a Buddhist as a Christian way of thinking.
Yeah, because we have to, that's a good point, we have to go beyond tribalism, as Richard Rohr would say. If our religions or our cultures are tribal, they're closely guarded, they're defended, that they're exclusive, then we haven't even started to wake up there. And it's true of our religions as well. Okay, well, thank you.